Namaste. We're reading Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita, the preliminary instructions for meditation, and he teaches the physical aspect. My guru often said that a true scripture is helpful physically as well as mentally and spiritually, and it's important for a person, if he's going to live right, to eat right, and in meditation to hold his body right, and so on. So let's go on. We've been going into this passage of how to sit for meditation. And Krishna says, seated firmly there in his asana, with one pointed concentration of the mind, and neither roaming mentally nor reacting to sense stimuli, let him seek self-purification by yoga practice, using the techniques prescribed by his guru. Holding the spine, neck, and head firmly erect and motionless, let the yogi focus his gaze at the starting point of the nose, between the two eyebrows, and let him not gaze elsewhere, but keep his gaze calmly one-pointed. Now, if you want to rise above body consciousness, then you've got to calm the body. The way to rise above it is to withdraw the energy from the nerves. And you do that in sleep, but you certainly don't do it if while trying to sleep you fidget and move about. Only when your body becomes still can you really fall asleep. And the same thing with meditation, to withdraw your energy from the senses and bring it into the spine and bring it up. If you hear sounds, don't react to them. This is again why Krishna says that it's essential to be even-minded, to be non-attached. The things in this world should not ruffle your mind. And in meditation, it's especially important. You will find those sounds receding if you hold your mind completely still and don't react to anything. One time I remember I was sitting in meditation. This is in Kashmiri Gate, and I was staying in a home there. And suddenly a mouse came running up my spine and stood on the top of my head and sort of peered around like this. And I thought, well, this is a good test, so I didn't move at all. And after a while, he ran down again. But it was a funny experience because normally one would react with a certain amount of whatever. But I found that by keeping my mind absolutely still and not worrying, everything went away. I didn't have to worry that he didn't start nibbling on me or anything. You will find that if you can keep your mind still, little things like this are good tests for you. Anyway, he says that keep the body. You remember earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, it speaks of Arjuna's bow. The body is that bow with the string. When you string the bow, you've got the straight bow, and then the sort of curve of the body in the front. Well, this is how you should meditate. And in the first chapter, Arjuna lets his bow slip from his grasp. What he means is he's sort of given up, he's unstrung his bow, and he's all discouraged. When you get discouraged, this is what happens. And if you want to meditate, keep your spine straight, keep your body calm, and so on. And so, he says then, practice nasikagram. There's been a lot of debate on that because many people say that this, just a moment, let me read it with my glasses on so I can be sure of reading well. The starting point of the nose. And many people, because they see the world from the outside, they think that the body starts here. But actually, when your body begins to create itself, it begins with the union of the sperm and the ovum at this point between at the back of the head, the medulla oblongata. And everything in spiritual reality begins from the inside out. God is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. And so what we find here is that really to understand a human being even, you have to know him from inside. You have to feel his heart. And you can only know that when your own heart becomes calm enough to be able to sense what other people are sensing too. To really be able to help anybody, This is the trouble with Freudian psychology. It tries to analyze. You can't understand people by analysis. I know that somebody who does graphology, analyzing handwriting, because I don't write my name with a capital letter. And my reason for doing that is that I feel unimportant. But she said that according to graphology, it means that you're pushing yourself forward. Well, I don't know where they got that one, but it isn't the truth. And what graphologists do, and this is why I lost all interest in it, they look at the symbol and decide on the reality from the symbol. But if you go into the inner thing, then different interpretations, different explanations can evolve. When you see a cloud on a hill, you may think that it's a cloud of dust, you may think that it's smoke, it may be just cloud coming up. You don't know. The only thing that can really tell you is intuition. And the same thing with people. You can't understand people by certain signs outwardly. Those are indications, but this is what I have with, the problem I have with astrology also. There was one astrologer who was doing a horoscope for somebody, and he says, you have 5 children. She said, I don't have any children. He said, are you sure? I should think that a mother would know whether she had had children. It doesn't seem like she could absent-mindedly produce 5 children. And but he was so sure of his science that he had to ask her, are you sure? Well, it was the science that was wrong, or I should say it was he who was wrong for not understanding the science deeply enough. But anyway, this is the problem with astrologers and graphologists and anybody who makes who decides what a person is according to outward signs. So to come back to this particular subject, nasikakam, the starting point of the nose, if I'm looking at you, I see that as a starting point. But if you're looking at me, your starting point is here, isn't it? So, as my Param Guru Swami Kriyananda said, the path of yoga is singular enough without also making people cross-eyed. You don't, many people, they teach yoga and you're supposed to, that's not the area, you should look up. In deep meditation, in fact, you know, and this is what some yogis also teach, whenever you see a body of water with the horizon being the sky, see, we're living in a 3-dimensional world. So it's good to bring ourselves from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions. A line is 2 dimensions. And then to penetrate through those 2 dimensions, beyond dimensions, meditate on the horizon line. And gradually your mind will become so still that you go through that horizon line into another dimension altogether. So in this, if you're looking at the horizon line that is formed by your eyebrows, then try to penetrate through that. Now, the horizon line is broad, but there's one point on that horizon line where, so there is a tiny, sort of, look at it this way. Your eyes can join about the way that my eyes can join if I look at my thumb when I hold it up. So it's not that you're like this way, but there's a slight inward drawing because of the attention here. That's different from the exaggerated position of crossed eyes. Now, anyway, at that point, focus your attention deeply there. And what happens is, you know, look at dogs or animals. They don't have this frontal lobe in the brain. Their foreheads go back on a steep slant. Man's forehead goes up, and it's an interesting thing that men and women have this difference. You can see from skulls in graves and so on. A man's skull, this part is more developed. I have this sort of Neanderthal bump here. Well, that's because men go more by reason, women go more by heart. And so this reasoning here is a part of the frontal lobe. They used to do prefrontal lobotomy as a means of helping people to overcome certain neuroses and so on. They've stopped doing that because they see that it takes away their intelligence too. The frontal lobe of the brain is the most advanced part anatomically. And in that part of the brain, there are different areas in that part, but yogis long ago found that this particular part is not as if you're concentrating in the forehead. It's that in the brain, at that point, just behind that midpoint between the two eyebrows, that is where superconsciousness lies. And when you try to concentrate deeply, your mind goes there. When you want to calm your mind goes there. When you feel superconscious ecstasy, your mind is lifted to this point. When you see pictures of saints, you'll see them looking upward. It's not as if Jesus or angels or saints or whatever up in the clouds, they're looking there. It's that this is where they have that ecstasy and those visions and so on. So he's saying, Nasikagram, concentrate at this point and don't let your eyes flicker. Try to keep them half closed and half open, slightly dipped up above, brought up in the lower part. A picture of Lahiri Mahashaya shows it perfectly, where his lower lids are a little raised, upper lids a little bit lowered. When you lower the lids, it becomes more of a straight line than looking actually at the eyebrows. Some eyes are a little lower than others and so on. So in this way, as you concentrate at that point, we have this world of 3 dimensions, but when you slip into that single point, into that line, and into that one point of the spiritual eye, you go beyond this world with its 3 dimensions into the superconscious world, which is beyond these 3 dimensions that we know. And in fact, in the reality, there is no time and space. There is nothing near or far. So in this way, you go into divine consciousness. So Krishna is talking about these things as important for meditation. Let the yogi focus his gaze at the starting point of the nose, nasikagram, between the 2 eyebrows, and let him not gaze elsewhere. I've been in churches where people are praying and they're moving their lips. You should not move your body if you want to really go within. You should not move your lips. But I've seen them sitting, praying like this and sort of looking around to see who's coming in. It's not a question of pleasing God that you meditate. It's a question of getting yourself so focused that you can receive His grace. This is why you have the hands turned upward in meditation. Certain mudras are also helpful, but I'm not going to go into that right now. And keep his gaze calmly one-pointed. So let's go on to verse 14. Serene and fearless, steadfast in his vow of brahmacharya, sexual control, his mind controlled, and his attention centered on me, the seated yogi should meditate on me as the ultimate goal of all striving. Now, when a person is meditating, it's assumed that he's not breaking any vow of brahmacharya, but he could be thinking. The main thing of brahmacharya is that it's controlling the thought of sex, not so much the act of it. We must withdraw our minds from the nerves to the point that they don't have an influence. Many people, I have read somewhere that people think of sex at least once every, I forget what it was, 5 seconds, 5 minutes, I don't know. Anyway, that constant emphasis of the energy, be strong. He talks of the vow of brahmacharya. Let's face it, if you want to know God, you've got to get sexual control. You can't. Well, what is sexual control? Brahmacharya can be sort of softened by this for householders, that maybe once a month, maybe once every 6 months, once a year. These are okay. If you can really reach the point where you have absolute control and you just don't think about that, then you have ojas, which is the power that comes into the body through that. Without power, you can't find God. There's got to be great energy. And this is the greatest drain on your energy that there can be. Some people, every day, several times a day, it's just unbelievable. They might as well just dig their graves and sit by them and wait for them to die. It's just, you've got to get control. I know it's difficult. I know that it's a hardship. I've had trouble with it. But thank God I've come out of it. But I know that it's a very essential thing. And it's more difficult for men than for women. But it is necessary for both. And its sexual expression is draining for both. And you notice women who are sexually inclined, they become very old, become old long before their normal time. So you'll notice that people who are spiritually inclined, they look young. I'm 84. I don't think I look 84. You can say, well, 90 or 100, I don't know. But anyway, when you really keep control over this energy, it shows in your body. Your eyes become more brilliant. I know that there's this sect in India that insisted that Tantra and so on was a good thing, and they would have at it all the time. Those people, I don't want to mention their names, but you probably know it. I would notice that their eyes looked absolutely dead. So remember, this is an important thing, but when you can keep that thought, at least the thought of it, away from your mind while you're meditating, there's a certain stirring of energy down there that pulls the mind. If you can get rid of that, then the energy rises in the body and you feel a certain freedom inside that you could never get otherwise. So Krishna throws this in as if casually, but we're really talking about something very central. Well, see you tomorrow. Joy to you.